Nana, thank you, that was lovely. We're going to hear a tribute now from Adele and Lawrence, and Adele is going to come and speak.
My memories of Linda. I first came across Linda back in 2003 when I worked for the Greater Manchester Coalition of Disabled People, GMCDP for short. At this time, Linda's partner Mike was my boss, poor Mike. I'll remember Linda for her dedication to promote social justice, her compassion for others, and her true ability to include others without judgment. Linda made a difference to others without often even realising it. I recall treasured memories of Linda and Mike joining Lawrence and I on our wedding day, and Mike giving us a rendition of Labby Sifry's Something Inside So Strong. I also recall being invited to Linda and Mike's home in Sheffield, and our son Tom, who was a toddler at the time, being fascinated by Linda's ceiling lift. Linda and I never saw each other often, but I knew if I needed a trusted friend with strong principles and a determination to challenge, I could always count on Linda. It's true what they say, friends are like stars, you don't always see them, but you know they are always there. Linda Laurie, you were one of a kind, and your memory will live on through us all. Thank you for being you.
That was lovely, thank you very much. We were going to have another friend of Linda's, Delia Mattis, speaking. Unfortunately, she hasn't been able to make it this evening, but she wanted to send her very best wishes and her love to you all, and she's thinking of everyone this evening. Our next contribution comes from Linda's good friend Jan, who is going to come and read a poem for us. Jan, do you want the lectern or handheld mic?
Sorry?
Do you want the lectern or the handheld?
Oh, the lectern
Yeah.
would help, I think.
I might just move them down a bit, okay?
Thank you. I've been asked to read a rather wonderful poem called Vegetabilism by Simon Brissenden. I'm a child of the earth. I've been a vegetable since birth. I went to a school for vegetables and learnt how to go with meat. I grew up and wore the stigma of being something people eat. And in my early vegetable days, I went through a religious phase and asked God why he had made me just to drown in a pool of gravy. But his answer was not detectable, so I became a Marxist vegetable. And bringing in elements of a feminist critique, I formed a vegetable liberation clique. The vegetable is political, I said, and tried to undermine the state. We advocated passive resistance to the knife, the fork, and the plate. And now I am writing a history in 3 volumes, from a post-structuralist point of view, of all the anonymous vegetable victims who have perished in hot pot or stew.
It's such a great poem. Thank you, Jan. I know when we met to talk about this evening, and we were looking through quite a few poems, and lots of them would have worked, but I don't think quite as well as that one. So we are going to have another piece of music now. It's another piece that Linda loved, and it is A Case of You by Joni Mitchell.
be prepared to bleed. Oh, but you are in my blood, you're my holy wine, you're so bitter, bitter and so sweet. Oh, I could drink a case of you. Still I'd be on my feet, I would still be on my feet.
So our next two speakers, in fact, are going to be Kevin White and Zayn Mia.
Hello everyone. Kevin, Zayn, brothers from another mother and father. We come as a pair. I'm going to let Zayn take the floor first. Oh, hold on a second. A little bit. Yeah, okay. I'll let Zayn take the floor first because I'm the older brother.
And the handsome one as well. Yeah, I don't know where to start, but I think we all can say so much about Linda today. Today we gather here to honor and remember our dear friend Linda, whose presence touched our lives in profound ways. The impact she made on the world around her was immense. She exemplified the true essence of a generous heart, always extended her hand to those in need and championing the cause of human rights. In a world where it's easy to lose hope, Linda never wavered. She believed in the goodness of humanity and dedicated herself into making a difference. Her unwavering commitment to justice and equality served us as a guiding light. Remembering to never to give up. This is what Linda taught us. She was a person of perseverance, strength, and hope. Linda, your light will shine in our lives. You will be dearly missed.
That's definitely hard to follow. I think Zayn has summed up what we all feel and definitely what I feel, so I won't sort of repeat what he said. But for me, personally, there's what I remember of Linda very strongly is there's a particular term that she would use at the Labour Party meetings, which was rubbish. And she would, when people were talking rubbish, she would shout rubbish. And that was it. While we're all trying to think of the points that they're making and not correct, and maybe they should have said this or that, she would say it's rubbish because that's all they were talking. She was very direct and she shouted rubbish. And they tried to stop her and she would continue and tell them to shut up. Because in that one single word, she said more than the clowns on stage who were trying to convince us that white was black and black was white. She just cut to the point. And that directness is something I've always struggled with, but what it is, once you know someone and you know the memory lives on, it lives on forever, you can channel that person. So I have been in situations where someone has been talking rubbish, and I've just said, that's rubbish, and ended it. And then we can move on to something more progressive, something more constructive. And that's what I see with Linda. She was a direct person, a kind and caring person, a person that always consulted, and she spoke to me about the comparisons and the parallels between prejudice, colour prejudice, racial prejudice, and prejudice with disability. It helped me to learn more, because sometimes we can disappear into our own problems and feel that our prejudice, the thing we suffer, is greater than that suffered by anyone else. But it's not. And it was good to learn from Linda. Linda taught me a lot. And I've been coming here for about nearly 40 years. And every time I enter this hall, I learn something new. And today, I'm learning something. I'm learning more about Linda and who she was. And I will hope to take that and carry that forward and be more like Linda. Thank you.
Thank you both. I think if more people said rubbish in meetings like that, we'd all be, and I speak as a recovering party member, we'd all be a lot happier. Yeah. So I'd now like to ask Linda Jordan to come and speak.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. It's really difficult to follow my mates, Zane and Kevin over there. Before I say my own things about Linda, I'm going to just read something from one of our comrades in Newham called Roger Silverman. He couldn't be here this evening, and he asked if I would read this for him on his behalf. I first got to know Linda Laurie 8 years ago, when we both became part of the influx of socialist red blood into the revived Labour Party at the beginning of the Corbyn project. It was crystal clear from the start that she was a formidable fighter who campaigned tirelessly for the rights of the exploited. She refused to be incapacitated in any way by her disability, and her many enemies soon learned the hard way that she would never allow herself to be either cowed by bullies or patronised by false friends. She cut straight through the hypocrisy of careerists and kept fighting to the bitter end. When the Labour hierarchy and its local clique found themselves incapable of justifying themselves politically, they resorted to brute force and shut down our party, kicking away the ladder on which they had climbed to power. Linda became a founder member of Newham Socialist Labour and an inspiration to her comrades, the real voice of the oppressed, multiracial working class of the area. She will not be forgotten. From Roger. Okay, so I moved from East Ham, a very long distance. I moved from East Ham, where I'd lived for 35 years, to West Ham, where I'd been born and grown up. Started going to Labour Party meetings and became a delegate to West Ham constituency Labour Party and met Linda. And we became close very quickly because we discovered that we both had been campaigning for inclusive education for disabled children for many decades. I first got involved in the campaign for inclusion in the 1980s. And immediately, in the 80s, and my daughter Ellen was born in the early 80s, and immediately I was confronted by horrendous disablest attitudes through my daughter. And in Newham, there were lots of parents who wanted our children to live ordinary lives, and one of our most important things we did was we formed alliances with disabled adults, because they supported us parents who were going against the grain to understand that segregating children when they were little led to segregated lives and was one of the really important reasons that disabled people are segregated and abused and so on and so forth. So when I met Linda, the memories of the support and solidarity that us parents had had in the 80s from disabled people came flooding back. At that time, Newham Council decided that they were going to undo all of the work that we did in the 80s to develop a truly inclusive education system in our borough. We closed 7 special schools and we celebrated being the one area in the country that had publicly said that it was wrong to segregate disabled children and disabled people. So I met Linda a lot. We used to have coffee often with Miriam and Carell, who's not here this evening, in the cafe in Stratford. Many happy meetings talking about how we could work together and rebuild a campaign in Newham for inclusive education. So Linda and I went to many meetings in Newham because they were planning to build new special schools. And obviously this was just horrendous after we'd had 30 years of inclusive education. So Linda and I went to many meetings together with counsellors, with professionals, but most importantly with parents. We formed a group in Newham called DICE, which is Defend Inclusive Comprehensive Education. We gave ourselves that badge so that we could be official and pretend we represented, hundreds of people locally, and in fact there was about 6 of us. And we just went to so many meetings, and I so much appreciated having Linda sitting next to me. She was just a source of calm, determination, and solidarity. So it's hard to imagine carrying on without Linda. She was such a beautiful friend. The last time I was at a meeting with Linda wasn't that long ago. The council had called lots and lots of parents' meetings to consult on their new plans. And we'd managed to gate crash these meetings. And my vision of those meetings was one where Linda was surrounded by a whole bunch of parents, hanging on her every word, listening to her wisdom as to why their children had a right to be included as full citizens. All of them agreed that their children should be going to the same schools as their brothers and their sisters and their friends. And so she did have a big impact in those meetings. So she'll continue to be there in our continuing fight to make sure that every child has a right to play together, learn together, and ultimately live together in peace and harmony. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to hear now from Kirsten Hearn, another friend of Linda's. She's going to sing for us, and I believe she's going to need some help with that, but she will explain all.
Thank you. Okay, so in a moment I'm going to teach you the chorus of a good song to sing whilst chained to a bus. I have many of these tucked up. In another incarnation I'm known as Maxi Token. The others of the tokens are elsewhere, because we had, usual, let me see, creative differences. And one of them went to Wales. So, anyway, so just before I do that, I first met Linda when she was being wheeled out of the GLC with a typewriter, I think it was, or a printer on her wheelchair, and her sitting on top, and 3 very interesting-looking women in dungarees, pretending to be porters, were removing some equipment because it was just the abolition time. And there was a bit of a sack on, a very organised sack on the GLC, where actually somehow all these wonderful bits of equipment appeared in voluntary organisations that had been supported by the GLC. So my prize thing was actually a GLC beer mug. As every good lesbian should have a beer mug. Anyway, just before I do this, so the second thing is, of course, Linda, I think, was doing a project for the GLC at the time, and I was working for them, so we all lost our jobs. But I got a job in the lesbian and gay unit, and she needed a job, and I said, do you want to be my PA? So she was my resourcer, as we called her those days, where she used to read things and help me get back, which was great fun, actually, her and me together. But it worked for about 6 months, and she got a really fantastic job as that, I think it was the head of the disability unit in Hackney or somewhere like that. So it was quite exciting, really. But this song, originally written by Elaine Kolb, who is an American disabled sort of folk singer and activist who's got many a song for many things. It was slightly converted by us because it did things like mention with God on our side, and I can't sing that. And it was a bit American, so we had to kind of like adjust it for English kind of like stuff. Anyway, it's called We Will Ride, and I'm going to teach you the chorus, and it's very simple. So I'm going to do line by line. So this first line is We will ride, we will ride. So it's we will ride, we will ride. Come on. We will ride, we will ride. And nice harmonies over here on my right. Right. With the strength of truth and justice on our side. With the strength of truth and justice on our side. For united we will fight, defending human rights. For united we will fight, defending human rights. We will ride, we will ride. Come on, we will ride, we will ride. Yes, I know those lovely harmonies. If you're a typical folk club, you're now expected to sing it perfectly. It's not difficult, you can allow along, so here we go. Now, apologies if I forget a word or 3. I am some years older than I was when I rewrote this song. Anyway, okay. Far too many people have been locked away too long. We won't accept excuses, right is right and wrong is wrong. Still the state believes that we should live on charity, but we're not gonna take this shit no more. We will be free and we will ride, we will ride. We have strength and truth and justice on our side. For united we will fight, defending human rights. We will ride, we will ride. The world is inconvenienced by disability, but we have human rights and we are aiming to be free. Riding public transport is one way to get around. So Minister of Transport, hear us now. We're freedom bound and we will ride. We will ride. We have strength and truth and justice on our side. For united we will fight, defending human rights. We will ride. We will ride. We are here today to tell you what we mean to do. We mean to fight freedom just like you. Let every kind of people have the power to be free. To live and learn and move and work and fight and laugh with dignity. And we will ride. We will ride. We have strength and truth and justice on our side. For united we will fight, defending human rights. We will ride, we will ride. Chorus one more time. We will ride, we will ride. We have strength and truth and justice on our side.
Brilliant. Yeah, really brilliant. Thank you. Our last contribution before we have a little interval comes from Dennis Queen. Dennis is a disabled activist from Manchester and knew Linda through DAN, the Disabled People's Direct Action Network. I'm going to say it now because I probably will forget when it gets to the interval. During the interval, if you could see these two nice gentlemen here, they have an iPad. If you want to leave a message, if you can go and see them, you can write it on the iPad.
Now, like, who can possibly follow Kirsten and beat that? I don't know, but good to see you, sis. Oops. Sorry. Thank you so much for the loan of this guitar tonight. I'm still getting used to it though, so apologies. I think we're gonna have to just hope it's good enough for rock and roll. I'm sure it will be. Sorry, I need to. It's just too much out of tune. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, folks. Sorry. Get to luck. Thank you, darling.
Can you give some commentary?
So I'm Dennis. I'm a friend of Linda and Mike. I'm really excited to be here, listening to everyone telling us different things that they know about Linda, because we all have different experiences of Linda. I met Linda and Mike when I was a baby activist, and mainly just a really annoying gobshite with not really much clue about where to aim my latest bit of anger. So I learned an awful lot from Linda and from Mike, but also on a personal level, they've always been really supportive to our family. So one thing I think I just wanted to speak about briefly while I'm here is that Linda did an awful lot of peer advocacy, so supporting other people to speak up for themselves, as does Mike. And for a phenomenal amount of people. And with that support, I was able to keep my children in my home, to raise them in independence. They're all now over 18, and I really feel like I wouldn't have been lucky enough to have the life that I now have if I hadn't had Mike and Linda's support, and just know that that support isn't just it doesn't just go into these kind of endless, bottomless pits of need. Skills are passed on the basis that those of us who can are going to try and help everyone else later. So now I help lots of other people get their care package sorted or their housing sorted or whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to thank Linda and Mike for that, really, because that on a personal level is such a big thing for all of us that have received that. It's definitely better than my tuning, I'm sure. Much better, thank you. Song called For Justice with Love, and I thought Linda would like it. Long live our movements, while we must fight. Long may we resist what is wrong for what's right, till all our descendants can live in the light, not locked behind doors, out of range, out of sight. No, the cause of oppression is not inside me or you, our bodies or minds or our senses is not true. Let's fight for change till the world is for you, for me and for all who come after us too. All now pull together, find those who are missing, so that we may grow. Even now, it's just the beginning. We've come so far, yet there's further to go. Our shared experiences generate change. Leave nothing undone, fight in all of our ways. Leave no one behind, use well all of our days, until we pass over and go to our graves. Life once again is becoming so tough. These social distances feel pretty rough. Carnage our people face is more than enough, but we'll rise again soon for justice with love. All now pull together, find those who are missing, so that we may grow. Even now, it's just the beginning. We've come so far, yet there's further to go. Hold on to your dream of a bigger new world, where we all belong and are felt and are heard. Keep that vision growing, invite others in. The more we come together, the more we will win. Remember activists gone before us, powerful traditions entrusted to us. Tell radical stories so no knowledge is lost. Our emancipation still waiting for us. All now pull together, find those who are missing, so that we may grow. Even now, it's just the beginning. We've come so far, but there's further to go. All now, find those who are missing, so that we may grow. Even now, it's just the beginning. We've come so far, yet there's further to go. Some people knew the words better than I did. How did that happen?
And thank you as well, that was brilliant. So we're going to have an interval now. We're going to take about 20 minutes. So if we come back, just after 25 past, I'll give you a shout. Go and get some food, go and get another drink, walk around, have a chat, and we'll see you back here in 20 minutes.
And we'll be putting away the food after this break, so please do have some.
There you go.
my window. Leave at your own chosen speed. I'm not the one you want, babe. I'm not the one you need. You say you're looking for someone who's never weak but always strong, to protect you and defend you, whether you are right or wrong. Someone to open each and every door.
Alex Collis. Sorry, never mind, it doesn't matter. It's okay. It's all right.
She's just here.
Alex Hall, thanks for what you did with the guitar. Thanks for the guitar.
Here's Alex. Here's the other Alex.
You're all right.
How are we doing on time? Great.
When you've crossed the stormy waters, come walk ashore.
Bring your sons and bring your daughters. Wander no more, for our door is always open, and our hearth is always warm. When you need a place to shelter, we're a harbor in the storm. There'll be time for rest and sleeping. Come walk ashore. There'll be space for peace and healing. Wander no more, for our door is always open, and our hearth is always warm. When you need a place to shelter, we're a harbor in the storm. For in days of lesser fortune, come walk ashore. We may need a door to open. Wander no more, for our door is always open, and our heart is always warm. When you need a place to shelter, we're a harbor in the storm. We're a harbor in the storm.
Absolutely beautiful, really beautiful. I'd like to call now on Linda's friend Richard, who is going to come and give us some poetry. You all right with that?
Yes, both. Thanks, Alex. Hiya. Ta. Right, I first met Linda in 1992. It was an interesting time for me. I was on a cusp. At that time, I was calling myself a 6'6" stammering asthmatic from West Bromwich who was prone to mental health issues. Shortly after meeting Linda, I started calling myself a disabled person, and that's the cusp I was on. I had to make a change. But one thing I really liked about Linda when I met her as a stammerer, As a stammerer, it's hard for me to talk. Sometimes it's harder for me to find somebody who wants to kind of listen to me and understand me, and that's something that Linda did in spades. Right, as I say, at that time it was right at the start of a journey for me, and this kind of poem kind of reflects that journey. It also kind of reflects our movement, I think, because I think our movement in '92, telephone had happened, but we were still quite young. And we hadn't quite had our first action as the Disabled People's Direct Action Network. Anyway, this first poem is called Listen to the Sound of the Underground. I think of it as a participatory poem. The first line is Listen to the Sound of the Underground, and the last line of every verse is Listen to the Sound of the Underground. And so if you want to participate, let's start now. Listen to the sound of the underground, swirling, sloshing, splashing into our ears, filtering from a darkness into your fears, calling you into the place you are bound. Listen to the sound of the underground. Listen to the words from those unspoken by those of us who are not yet broken. We are not just bodies piled on a mound. Listen to the sound of the underground. Listen to new voices speaking up fast. You've had your say, you made us speak last. Free from the tight strings of hospital gowns. Listen to the sound of the underground. Listen, our voices are now coming through. It's taken so long, but now they are due to break through ways our own silence condoned. Listen to the sound of the underground. Listen, we're speaking, we've got something to say. Don't ignore us, don't just walk away. Hide in dark corners, because you will be found. Listen to the sound of the underground. Listen, you've heard us, but what did you do? You didn't do anything, that much is true. So now it's our turn to turn you around. Listen to the sound of the underground. Listen to our sound, because we're speaking now. We don't care for your values, your cash cow. We don't care for your pounds, so call off your hounds and listen to the sound of the underground. From under floorboards deep in these sewers, coming like troops on army manoeuvres, coming from everywhere like scents around. Listen to the sound of the underground. And last verse, you'll be glad to know, swirling, sloshing, splashing into your ears, filtering from the darkness into your fears, calling you into the place you will drown. Listen to the sound of the underground. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thanks for your participation. Participation is a word we often use in our movement. Well, I'm grateful for it. I'm not a poet who uses metaphor. I'm not a poet who uses kind of simile. So those things are kind of reserved for poets who had an education. Right, I'm a special school survivor myself. Right, health was important, education wasn't. However, I have a poem which is full of metaphor. And this metaphor is about kind of institutions and what we had to live with. It's called kind of bad mouth. A motley mob of moth-eaten mothers encircling the recidivist children, braying like donkeys and clucking like hens, These are our rules. And these are our rules. A child stamps his feet. We will not be told. We will not obey. We will not be seen without having a say. This he said to a motley mob of moth-eaten mothers, who stood above him chiding his bad mouth, their hands on their hips, their fingers wagging, maintaining strict control of the playground, encircling the recidivist children. How dare he, this young brash whippersnapper, how dare he talk to us like this, so rude. How dare, their condescending words braying like donkeys and clucking like hens, and the canes came out as the punches slapped, and they set about this tiny young chap who stood his ground against the blows and cried, "These are our rules, and these are our rules. We will not be told, we will not obey, we will not be seen without having a say." Thank you. I've been thinking today about my own time in special school, and back in the 1960s, my songs of liberation were Engelbert Humperdinck's "Please Release Me" and Tom Jones's "Green, Green Grass of Home." I had an alternative. I could either sing these songs or I could pray like Simon Brissenden kind of prayed. This one's called the Anthems and the Prayers of, well, it's just called Anthems and Prayers. The anthems and prayers of lonely people waiting to be sung and waiting to be heard. Tired of waiting to get somewhere faster. Tired of singing loudly, let us on the buzz. Tired of whispering secret prayers to birds, the anthems and the prayers of lonely people. The anthems and the prayers of lonely people, isolated men feeling castrated, isolated women tired, frustrated, isolated children segregated. They took us away and threw away the keys. The anthems and prayers of lonely people. The anthems and prayers of lonely people, they left us rotting in dark workhouses, jotted down our names in registration, made damn sure we had no say in nation, locked us up without pennies or a thought. The anthems and the prayers of the lonely people. Oh, anthems and prayers of lonely people. Once were only words, once were only songs, shouting them out at the top of our lungs, proving once more we're angry, we're proud and we're strong, chanting to the Lord, chanting to the steeples, our anthems and prayers. We are a rising people. And finally, a poem called Push, which you'll be glad to know, is another participatory poem. I'd like you to take your left hand and put the back of your hand, if you can, against your left shoulder. And when I say push, I want you to say push and push. Left hand closest to the artist. Right, don't want to see any of that. Ready? Push. There is no guarantee. Push. No comeback. Push. Push forward. Spread the word. The world is changing. We made it so. We pushed. Even though there was no promise, we pushed and made a pledge to keep on pushing. Push. There was a time, and that time is true, keeps on returning, when we were the ones to push us around, to push, to punish, to be pushed by others who were doing the pushing. But now we push. We no longer take this pushing, the prodding or the pointing. We have ideas to push, words to push forward, a world to push for. So we are pushing, we are doing the pushing, always pushing, we push. We will not stop pushing. We pushed for transport so there would be less pushing. We pushed to free our people, for we were tired of all this pushing. We pushed for independent living so there would be no pushing, but the pushing we pushed for, our own pushing. We pushed our dreams for pushing, like pushers pushing. Access, push. Therapy, push. Peace, we push for equality, we push for inclusion, we push for independence, we push and keep on pushing for our lives, our dreams, our hopes, our schemes. We push. We are right to go pushing. Push with us. Be a part of the pushing. We pushed for us, we pushed for you, we pushed for the other, our sisters and our brothers. Push with us. Push for Linda Laurie. Push now. Push and push. Thank you.
Fantastic. We are going to hear now a few words from Linda's friend, Kath.
Hi. Well, coming after all those people is quite a trial, actually, but I'll do my best. It was wonderful when Tony, my husband, and I met Linda and Mike many years ago. We soon realised what fighters they were, and this encouraged us to fight for our very lovely son who has a disability. Anthony's schools did not believe that he could possibly be bright because of his disability. However, after many battles and the support, I have to say, of some people, and his occupational physiotherapist, which sometimes is quite unusual, they encouraged him, and he gained a place at London University, who really did welcome him. He did his university dissertation in a township in South Africa, and this was to do with a physio he met, who actually went to prison because she supported Nelson Mandela and all the rights. And she spent many, many years in prison, and she was only 20 when she went, and she was a white woman, so she was absolutely hated. But she talked to Anthony about how he was going to do a dissertation, and he decided he was going to go to a township near Soweto. The dissertation included how people with disabilities accessed education before and after apartheid. He gained a first in his dissertation, and it was used and still used by the South African government to train teachers and to encourage them to include children with disabilities and to show that they can achieve whatever level that they can. Anthony now works for a small charity called Able Child Africa, and it's the only charity that totally supports young disabled people to access education in some of the poorest countries in Africa. One of them is Rwanda. And he couldn't be here tonight, but he says, thank you so much to Linda and to Mike as well for encouraging him in education and to realise that he would have to fight, but he would follow their example and always fight for his rights and, of course, for other people. Tony and I would like to really thank Linda. We thanked her before, and we're really pleased that we did show how much we appreciated her. And Mike, also, we thank you for always being there and very supportive. And from the bottom of our hearts, we know that although you're going to really miss Linda, and at times you will be dreadfully upset, but I think because you had such a good life together, you're going to remember in the times when you feel very down, you're going to realise what a wonderful relationship that you and Linda had.
Thank you very much for that, Kath. We are now going to hear from Linda's friend, Cushy.
Okay, so you must have seen me as a kid on some of the pictures and popping around. Yeah. Thank you all for being here today. It's really nice to share how one person touched so many lives. It's heartwarming, to say the least. My name's Cushy, so I'm 20 years old, but Linda's known me she knew me for 21 years. You might ask how. That's because my mum was pregnant with me that's when she knew my mum, and my mum worked for her back in Sheffield. And that's how my journey started. So since I was a kid, she kind of knitted my first blanket, and she spoilt me so much as a kid. So many gifts every Easter, a bunny, chocolate eggs, every Halloween something. Me and my sister never looked forward to the festival. We just wanted Linda's gifts because that's what we wanted as kids. And as we grew older, we realized that she sent it with so much love, so much compassion. And like Mike said, it's just, she's always giving, never thought about, anything else, just wanted to give. So a few words to just say, I never really before visualized what this loss would feel like to me. I've tried to, think about what I would write today, what would I say today. Every time I did, I think I had tears in my eyes, so I just said, I'm just going to say what really comes up. Linda was a friend, a mentor, and family in so many ways. My entire big Indian family knew her. They met her when they came to the UK, and she always had like this thing with friendship where she could just be a friend with a small baby or like an old person, anyone. She provided warmth and kindness that can never be replaced by anyone. She stood strong despite any hardships, and she always had that beautiful smile on, making me feel like maybe life is simple and more joyful with a smile. I remember her always encouraging me to do the right thing, keep learning, take opportunities, go and adventure the world, and I did. I went to Thailand for 5 weeks. I went to a boot camp with retired elephants, and I missed her so much over there. I came back, showed her everything I'd gone through, and she just said, good, just keep going. My journey with Linda started from a very long time ago, might just feel 20 years, but since I've known her, I never really thought that I'd have to go on without her. But it feels like she's here. She's here, sitting here, watching and laughing at all the things happening today. And I feel like a small part of her will be in me every day. She's one of the people in my life who I am because of, and I'm ever so grateful that I had the opportunity, thanks to my mum and dad, to know her and to know lots of people from here today. So I just want to end on the note that Linda will always be remembered. Maybe one day I can tell my kids that, yeah, this was Linda, and I can hopefully fight for what she also thought was right, because she's instilled so many of my beliefs today, and she's always proved that a disability is just a different ability. So thank you all for joining me, and let's give a round of applause for Linda.
Thank you, Cushy. You made your mum cry. So, we are now going to hear from Miriam, who is a friend of Linda's, a fellow activist and campaigner in Newham.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's been an amazing, amazing evening. I'm just completely stunned by everyone. So mine's just going to be a bit of a list of campaigns and activist groups, because that's how I know Linda, and that's how I met her, and that's how we were until what happened. So first was the Newham Against Academisation, and Kevin and Zane and George and Linda Jordan were all in that. Then that morphed into DICE, which George here named Defend Inclusive and Comprehensive Education, which Linda's told you about, and we did try hard. Not completely unsuccessfully, I think. Then there was climate activism, and the biggest road project in the UK, the Silvertown Tunnel, was going to come into Newham, which we already have the worst pollution in the UK. So it was quite hard to get outside those primary schools to those stalls to talk. Linda came. She was amazing, as always. Then, of course, there's Palestine, which is, you can see big flags. Linda was a super organiser from the time we started East London, which has now morphed into Newham and Tower Hamlets, PSC, Palestine Solidarity Campaign. She was a super organiser. I mean, her social skills put most of us to shame. She could just organise and get people there. And you've seen a couple of the photos of our last boycotts. They were both on Green Street. And Linda shouting. Mike was there at both of them, I'm glad. That's how I met Mike, actually, on those boycott campaigns. And Sybil's going to tell you a bit more about the Palestinian part of how Linda's active, key organiser. I miss her terribly. Then last year, she joined Stop the War. Now, that's quite brave. Brave to stop the war, and she was out on stalls with us on Stop the War. That was hard, but you know what runs through Linda? We've heard it again and again. Such a strong thread. Shouldn't call it a thread. It was a rod of iron run through Linda. She had principles, she stuck to them, she fought for them, and she talked to people about them in a way that I wish I could learn to do. Keep trying to imitate people like Linda and just ending up ranting, but hey, she was absolute fighter. Everyone said it beautifully here. Very articulate, very funny. What a combo. Brilliant organiser, as I've said. And she's also a good friend. I had cups of coffee with Linda in cafes in, what's it called, East London, Stratford. I wouldn't have ever gone there but for Linda. But we had great cups of coffee. We had such a laugh. I learned so much from her. I'll miss her badly. And so will every activist and every campaign in Newham. We lost a star.
Thank you, Miriam. We're going to hear now from Sybil.
Thank you. I feel I've learnt so much about Linda tonight. I was looking forward so much to getting to know her better. I've known her 3 or 4 years, particularly well in the last year. She took the Palestinian struggle really to heart, and I just thought this week, what would she have said and thought, and most importantly done, about what is going on in Jenin this week. You'll see our 2 banners here, the East London Newham Tower Hamlets Palestine Solidarity Campaign has a twinning link with Jenin. We speak to people from Jenin regularly, and this massacre is something which she'd have been on the phone to me saying, right, what are we doing, what are we doing, what are we doing? She organised everything. As Miriam has said, she was the most fantastic organiser. She learned so quickly everything. She became a representative at national level. I'm a member of the National Executive. She came regularly to meetings either in and outside London, which were delegates from different branches where we shared ideas and decided what we were going to do next. Also online meetings, and she really stepped up. She lent me her strength. People have talked about her strength. When I was going away for a few weeks earlier this year, and I realised I couldn't do things remotely. I mean, you can do some things remotely, but not everything. Linda said, it's all right, I'll take over. And she did. She just took over, and I was sort of out of it, almost out of it, for several weeks. And that felt really good, because I felt there was another person there who could take things on, get on with it, organise things. She made friends in the whole of the Palestine Solidarity Movement. There's a mention in the brochure from Nandita, who runs the Camden Abu Dis Friendship Association here in London. Linda helped with some visits earlier this year while I was away, in fact. And I'm going to say, I've checked this out with Mike, but we're doing a crowdfunder to get some Palestinian children, some of them from Jenin, not just Jenin, from other parts of the West Bank, over to London in September, and I'm going to be promoting that crowdfunder in Linda's name, and it'll be on social media, it'll be on our Facebook page. There are cards at the back, and if you want to follow it, you can. I think the things I learned about Linda today include when Mike said right at the beginning, she believed in rights, not charity. She believed in solidarity, not pity. And Linda really understood that the Palestine Solidarity Campaign is about building solidarity and not just about charity and feeling sorry for people. So I'm going to miss Linda more than I could ever have imagined. Thank you, Linda.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sybil. We're going to hear now from Linda's friend Richard Reeser, who knew Linda through disability training courses that they worked on together.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to talk about Linda as a disability activist, but not just an activist, a very experienced trainer. And the ideas, which are the wellspring of the disability movement, we set about bringing into schools in the early 90s. And it was really difficult for many of the disabled trainers because they had had such bad experience of school that the first session, usually on those trainings, was a time when the hankies were out and a lot of memories which had been pushed down had to be remembered, because unless you know your enemy, you can't actually confront it. And people had internalized it to such an extent that they were doing training all over the place, but the one place that disability equalities trainers would not go was into schools. Because of that, the alienation that they felt. And we knew that that had to change. And with some funding from Comic Relief, we managed to actually pull together around a training pack called All Together Better, a list of trainers around the UK. And although Linda was on the first wave of that, she did certainly come in on the second wave of it. And we trained with support from then, and then the Labour government under David Blunkett supported that as well. And we actually trained more than 600 disabled equality trainers to work in schools. Now, they all didn't want to work in schools, but it was important that they understood the message of inclusion and how it was linked to our fundamental understanding of what disability is. Now, impairment is common. It's been common since human beings have existed. Impairments of the mind, impairments of the body, impairment of the senses. This is part of the human condition. And yet all societies have put barriers against that, which are still common in the many stereotypes we see in the media. What we say in the disability movement is that's our impairment. But our disability is what society does to us. It creates barriers that prevents us going to ordinary schools, prevents us getting on the tube, prevents us getting on the bus, prevents us getting to houses because they're not adapted, prevents us getting on the internet because websites are not accessible, prevents in every direction. This is still the largest oppression in England after the oppression of women. There are no other oppressions that are stronger and more deeply rooted, and yet it is often ignored by the organised left, and yet is something that those of us who have continued to struggle with it still have to keep bringing to the fore. Because it was people like Linda and her absolute understanding of that, based on the principles of growing up as a disabled person. You've heard about the segregation she went through, but she was one of the few of the new wave of disability campaigners who managed, with the expansion of higher education, to get to university and become reflective of their position. There had been fighters before, going right back for 100 years, but there had never been a generation who actually joined all the dots and understood deeply from their own experience, but also theoretically, what was needed. And that was the mainstay of the resurgence of the disability movement. It was the mainstay of the activity around DAN, which you've heard about, and Disabled People Against the Cuts. The problem is, people like me, I'm 75, and Linda, and others like Judy Heumann, who we lost this year, a great American activist, we're running out. We have to bring in new generations of disabled people to understand the nature of this oppression. And the problem is, with social media, you can even invent an avatar for yourself where you're not actually who you actually are. So there are real issues about how we engage with future generations of disabled young people and bring them into the struggle. But Linda is a shining star of that struggle, and with Mike, who actually was at that first training in Leicester in 1993 and did a concert with us with, in fact, I think the song he's going to do a bit later, to keep us on the right track. So Mike and Linda have been great champions and supporters of the struggle for disability equality, but particularly understanding where many didn't, that this had to come into education. And it's a struggle we're still going to have, because the Labour opposition do not have any plans to move in that direction, and the government are so deeply embedded with private profiteers who are setting up endless special schools, which they convince parents is the only place that their child can go, because they have created a stranglehold on the curriculum and the assessment in ordinary schools. That has to be changed, and we need common cause with all those here to carry on that struggle in the name of Linda and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So we're going to have another piece of music now. It is Immigrant by Nitin Sawhney.
Possibly they advertised in the local newspapers in Delhi that they are encouraging for people to come down here and work. And then we went to the embassy, they showed us Kew Garden pictures and pictures of the various parts of England, that it is all that beautiful and everything is just right. And that's what we just applied for the voucher.
Flame within your hands, you know when my destiny falls.
চলে যা কোথা যা মাঝি কোথা চলে যা রে মাঝি কোথা চলে যা কোন পথে দিলে বাড়ি কোথায় ছিল আমার বাড়ি আপনার জন্য তুমি কোথা ফেলে যা
Will you take me there to a distant place I've never been before? I could leave this world, I could follow you like oceans to the shore. You could take me there, make the rivers of my mind flow to my dreams. Oh, make the rivers flow. Take me there, take me there, take me there, yeah. Take me there, yeah, yeah. Ooh, take me there. Will you take me there? Take me there, take me there, take me there, yeah. Take me there, yeah, yeah. Ooh, take me there, take me there, take me there, yeah. Take me there, yeah, yeah. Ooh, make the rivers flow. Take me there, take me there, yeah. Make the rivers flow, yeah, yeah. Ooh, make the rivers there, take me there, take me there, yeah. Take me there, yeah, yeah. Ooh, make the rivers flow. Take me there, take me there, yeah. Make the rivers flow, yeah, yeah. Ooh, make the rivers there, take me there, take me there, yeah. Take me there, yeah, yeah.
So as we start drawing the evening to a close, there are just a few more minutes for anyone else who might want to say anything. You wave your hands at me if you want to speak. Please do come and speak. And if you could just introduce yourself and how you knew Linda.
Good evening. I thought there were people in the room. Good evening. Thank you. My name is Kwaku. And when Mike sent the original invitation, I was out of the country. I wasn't sure I'll be able to make it. So I didn't put my name down. Apparently, you're supposed to have told somebody if you wanted to speak. But when I came in here, I was hoping I'd have a chance to speak, because a new concept came to me while I was thinking of Linda. When Jeremy Corbyn published his 10-point plan, we supported Jeremy Corbyn, and as a consequence, we formed a group called, I believe, Africans for Momentum, because momentum was happening. But we soon realized that as a momentum, my part waves. So we became a double-barreled organization as Africans for Momentum and Africans for JC Values, Africans for Jeremy Corbyn Values. Very early on, before we even launched, Linda and Mike had got in touch because there was a whole lot of meetings of momentum organizations. And what they introduced to us was the awareness of disablement. So going forward, we had to be mindful of the venues we used. So that was a good thing. And I will not forget the support. Our organization was to sensitize Africans to Jeremy Corbyn. But they introduced allyship, because they obviously were not African, but they came to our events and supported us. And I'll not forget the furthest place we had an event was Croydon. It was a dinner fundraiser, and they came all the way, and they came, I think, a couple of people. And then we launched at the House of Commons with John MacDonald. They were there. I just want to reflect on something that came to mind as I was coming here. The idea of disablement. We tend to look at the physical. Obviously, Linda was disabled physically. But what occurred to me was that we have a narrow understanding of disablement. Obviously, we talk about mental disablement as well. But something occurred to me. I just come from Ghana, where we are at the verge of existential extinction in a sense. Our waters are being polluted, our lands are being polluted, and our government is doing nothing. So my wife is there now, very much on the environmental tip. She's a lawyer, and we send things to a platform of lawyers, and then the city, they don't care. So it occurred to me that there's a certain form of disablement that we don't think about. Activism disablement. People are so comfortable where they are, they don't realize that they're not engaging in something to change our system. If people like Linda changes actually they did for disabled people, some people come for the ride. But I don't want to hog it. All I want to say is that let's not look at disablement in terms of just physical. Let's look at the people who do not engage in activism. That should be another disablement that we should highlight. So that is all I want to say. Linda was a great person, and I'm glad that I've actually come here to represent Africans for JC Values. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Simone. I suppose I really know Mike. So I've come here because I've known Mike for many years, involving Dan, Deepak, and various other campaigns for disabled people's rights. However, I do recognise all the good work that Linda Laurie has done, through being a donor, being through the campaign for accessible transport. So, yeah, really want to just, her life lives on, like all our history in terms of disabled people's activism. But one thing I have to say, I always remember, and I'm going to have to say, because it's the one thing I always remember time and time again. It doesn't matter, whatever time I ever rang Mike and Linda, Mike will know, because he tells me all the time, it is tea time. And that's my cool memory.
Yeah, when we were putting together the service for a couple of weeks ago, I was told about tea time. It was always tea time. Yeah. And I think our last contribution, do you want to come first? And then we'll have you first, and then we'll have Jan. Thanks.
Just like a couple of minutes. Hello, everyone. I knew Linda since year 2003 when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I went for the interview, and me and my husband went for the interview, and I was chosen. So I was very lucky. And I worked for a year, and then we were good friends. We kept in touch, and when Linda told me that once, when I was working with her, that she's going to travel to Kerala, I said, Linda, you and Kerala not possible. But she was so clear about the decision that she had taken, and she went there and came back safely. And I learned so much from her about Kerala that I decided to visit Kerala when I went to India. So, I mean, there's so much to say about Linda. She was a superwoman. She was so courageous, determined, hardworking, and supportive, and always willing to listen. And whenever we were new in this country, and she always supported us throughout our journeys. And both my daughters are, whatever they are, they're because of Linda's guidance and support. So I pay my gratitude and respect to her wherever she is. And Yeah, thank you to Mike as well for everything that he and Linda did for us. Thank you.
Yes, and our last tribute is from Dave Welsh, I think, and Jan's going to read it on his behalf.
For Linda, wherever there was a fight, Linda was in the thick of it. As a former rail worker, a retired member of the RMT, and a founding member of Norfolk for Nationalisation of Rail, I would like to add a few words to a tribute to Linda. Before lockdown, she supported in London our campaign in support of guards on trains and for an integrated and accessible rail system. She joined Jan Pollock and others at Liverpool Street Station several times to protest and was always supportive to the campaign against tube privatisation in its long fight to return the London Underground to full public ownership. She came to Norwich to speak at our public meeting in October 2017 alongside Mick Cash, then General Secretary of the RMT, and John McDonnell. She highlighted the failings of the privatised rail companies in terms of disability and advocated public ownership. Linda also understood that an alliance between the communities and rail workers is essential to achieve the change, i.e. a socialised transport system, to replace the chaos of privatisation. Most recently, I remember her on a demonstration supporting the P&O workers. Her presence on picket lines will never be forgotten. I was also privileged to interview her and Mike for the London at Work London Oral History Project. Her commitment to socialism shone through.
So we're going to finish on two songs. Before we do, the first one is going to be from Mike. I'm going to do the thank yous whilst you're getting ready. So we are going to draw this part of the evening to a close, but can we first please have a huge thank you and a round of applause for everyone who's contributed this evening. I think probably all of us here would agree that it's been a truly special evening, and I hope you feel that it reflected the Linda that you knew, and I know lots of people have spoken about learning new things about her. Mike has asked me to say a few thank yous, because this really has been a collective effort organising this evening. The caterers, firstly, so Catherine Janjo, Mamta Joan, Monica Costa and her cousin who didn't know Linda but came here to help tonight anyway, and Shamim. Shamim did lots of work behind the scenes but had to attend a wedding this evening, so isn't here. Thank you to Fiona and Mark, who drove hundreds of miles around Hampshire to help find the perfect site for Linda. Also current and alumni members of the Humanist Choir who volunteered to come and sing, including their previous director, Laurel Neighbour, and Alex Hall. Alex, who has volunteered to accompany and conduct the choir this evening. A huge thank you also to Conway Hall staff and contractors who've really helped to make this evening a success. Thank you. There's Ravi and Dimitris, Ravi over there, Dimitris there, who put together the burial card and this evening's programme. A special mention to Dimitris and Ripley, who also put together the slideshow tonight, and that was put together with contributions from friends and neighbours, so thank you. And also Bavin, who has helped keep a record of who's here too. Before you leave, if you want to leave a message on the iPad, grab him before you go. Fiona Daffan, who helped Mike sort out many of Linda's possessions, as well as doing lots of other things behind the scenes to make sure the evening ran smoothly. Where are you, Fiona? Linda's friends Jan and Christine, who've been consistently and selflessly supportive in so many ways. Thank you both. Miriam Scharf, who with Jan, Fiona and Catherine helped Mike sort out all the items to be shared with Care for Calais and other refugee groups, as well as sorting out medical equipment to go to Palestine. All of you who've attended this evening in person and online as well, it's been a truly memorable evening, and I don't think it's one that any of us will soon forget. And what better way to finish than with two pieces of music. First from Mike, and then we're going to hear the last piece from the choir.
Okay. How long is it going to be? A couple of minutes. Okay. Well, good evening all. We're just holding on for Dennis, who's going to be with us shortly. She's here now. This is a song that's written by Ian Stanton and myself. Ian Stanton, sadly, no longer with us. One of those people who, as Richard mentioned, have passed on. But he was a member of the Tragic But Brave Roadshow, of which I was also a member. I'm padding, padding, Dennis. Let me know when you're ready. But this is a song called Tragic But Brave, and I hope it's relevant to this evening because, for me, it symbolises how I met Linda, really. I met her through the group Block Telethon, which was a group that formed to stop the patronising stuff that the BBC was saying about disabled people through their thing called Telethon. Now, sadly, equivalent crap is now available, but at the time we had a victory. It was the last ever Telethon. Hooray!
Yay!
And this song was part of that struggle. We sang this song volubly outside outside TV Centre. Are you ready, Dennis?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, you in tune? Do you want to give me a
I don't
D?
think I'm in tune with you, but
Do you want to... E? B? Right, you ready? Fantastic. Yeah, okay. Okay, let me just find my foot. It's sliding away from me. I was going to do this standing up. It turns out I'm not. Oh, there it is. Right, let's get on with it because staff need to get home. I'm sure they're all members of trade unions and I don't want any strikes on my hands. Right. Plus, everybody else needs to get home too, but thank you all for coming. And for those of you who know this, join in. If you don't know it, the lyrics are in the book and they're on the screen. Join in anyway if you can kind of follow the tune and the words and the general sentiments. But please otherwise join in. Just a way to ease the boredom. Propaganda's all around. He swallows all the spiel he's given. Deliverance so easily found. He smiles for the cameras. Never wears a frown. till the lights go down. Because he's tragic but brave. And he knows that Jesus says he could be whole if he could just hold God's hand. Yes,
he's tragic but brave.
And oh so
well behaved.
Because he knows it's all a part of God's eternal plan. Well, he's a sinful man. Over to you, Dennis.
Beads of sweat and muscle straining, super crips the way she'll stay, so she can be a human being, not disabled in any way. Someone will always help her up the steps of work each day. Hide it all away.
Because she's tragic but brave. And to her body she's no slave. She's proud of every ounce of her normality. Oh yes, she's tragic but brave. What she could have been, it's a shame. Still, she's just the same as you or me. As much as she can be. Then she looks at the crowds on the TV news with their wheelchairs, their sticks and their guides, and their brandishing banners. They are pissing on pity and they celebrate difference with pride. Something stirs us. Stumbles down the street with shopping. All the people smile his way.
What it is to be independent, he would gladly hear them say. He falls through his front door and rubs the pain away.
It's just a part of his day. Because he's tragic but brave. And he will be to his grave. Soldier on.
Overcome his needs. Oh yes, he's tragic but brave.
Never been one to complain. Other
people have problems, they're much worse off than me.
What if his wounds bleed? Then he looks
at the crowd on the TV news with their wheelchairs, their sticks and their guides.
They are
brandishing banners, they are pissing on pity and they celebrate difference with pride.
Something stirs inside. Something moves inside.
Something recognizes.
Something recognizes.
Something stirs inside.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you very much to Mike and Dennis. We're going to close out the evening with one final song. It's a circle song. It goes round and round, so please feel free to join in. If you want to sit there and listen, that's also fine too. But we hope we offer you some words that give you some space for reflection and some nice words to close out the evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks. all join in.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the world. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the world. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the world. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thanks everyone, safe journey home. Take some food with you please. Thank you. Thank you.